In a series like this, would someone, such as myself, have the great misfortune of having to review two films back to back that involve a robot with emotions who just wants so bad to be human that they'll do anything across a shitty movie to get it? Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and my ongoing quest to review every single movie Robin Williams has ever appeared in, cameoed in, had a voice cameo in. Before I get into the video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Like this video, leave some comments, tell your friends, whatever. I'm in the last 15 years of Robin Williams' career here. I've got not that much longer to go, ultimately. So make sure you get in on this before the series is over, or at least tell people, you know, go back, binge the rest of the videos, whatever. Last week I looked at Bicentennial Man. This week I'm looking at AI, Artificial Intelligence, the 2001 film directed by Steven Spielberg. This film stars Haley Joel Osment, Jude Law, Frances O'Connor, William Hurt, and has little cameos from Meryl Streep, Chris Rock, Ben Kingsley, and Robin Williams. Robin Williams' cameo in this is as the voice of Dr. No, who is a holographic know-it-all answer engine that these characters travel to ask questions. AI Artificial Intelligence is about this child robot named David, who's played by Haley Joel Osment. The film starts by asking the question, what if we could program a robot who could love? And David is a robot child who, once they push this button, will do nothing but love his mother unconditionally for the rest of time. And she decides to push the button, and then about a week later she drops him off in the middle of the forest and leaves him for dead. And he teams up with this other robot, Jude Law, and he is going across time to try and find the blue fairy, as in the Pinocchio story, so he can be made into a real boy and his mother will love him. This film is very interesting. It's got a lot of interesting backstory that really doesn't have anything to do with Robin Williams, but let's get into the backstory of that. So this film was actually a Stanley Kubrick project for a very long period of time, if you don't know that. Stanley Kubrick directed The Shining and The Clockwork Orange, 2001: A Space Odyssey, like some of the best films of all time. He began developing this project that's based off a short story in the 70s. He kept having to put it off because he thought that CG at the time was not advanced enough to portray the character of David the way that he wanted it to be done. It eventually started bouncing back and forth between Stanley Kubrick and his friend Steven Spielberg. Kubrick wanted Spielberg to direct it because he thought he could bring the heart to it, but then Spielberg wanted Kubrick to direct it because he thought, you know, it was his project, that Kubrick was going to be able to bring the dark tone to it that it needed. They kept kind of passing it back and forth. Kubrick ultimately picked up the project. He put it back on hold while he was working on Eyes Wide Shut. Around the time of Eyes Wide Shut's release, Stanley Kubrick passed away. The project fell back into the hands of Steven Spielberg in 1999. Around February 2000, Spielberg put this project on hold again while he considered whether or not he wanted to direct the third Jurassic Park film or Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Ultimately, because this was his friend's career-long vision to direct this film, he wanted to go back and give it a chance. This film has a notoriously sappy ending as well that a lot of people accuse Steven Spielberg of tacking onto the project, when in reality that was the ending that Kubrick had come up with as the ending from the story, and they could not. For the longest time, they also had the project on hold because they couldn't figure out how to get the ending to work. And ultimately, I think that it doesn't work, and I think a lot of people think that as well. Most of the parts of the film that people thought that Steven Spielberg had come up with, Stanley Kubrick had come up with, and vice versa. So it just goes to show how much you don't really know about one director's tone or another. I read somewhere that Robin Williams recorded all of his dialogue for Dr. No before Steven Spielberg was attached to the project. I couldn't verify that, so I don't know if that's true. And because I know that Robin Williams and Steven Spielberg were good friends, it would not surprise me if that was false. So this film obviously had a lot of production trouble. It has a lot of history behind it, and ultimately I don't know. This is one of those things that, because it's something I said about Bicentennial Man, I'm not a big fan of sci-fi in general, really. I'm not a big fan of stories about robots with emotions either. So I don't know if this was the kind of story that could have been something great, though I would assume that it is, because there are good moments in this. The ending does kind of ruin it, and a lot of the stuff is just so confusing. If I lose my train of thought, or if I'm not making sense, or if I sound weird, it's because I've been sick all week. So there's that, I guess. Haley Joel Osment delivers a very interesting and scary performance in this. It poses some very interesting questions about the ethics and the logistics of teaching a robot to love unconditionally like this, but then it kind of just throws them all out the window because nothing that the characters do makes sense. So there's this scene where they're eating dinner and Haley Joel Osment is just like, just like laughs, and the parents are like, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. And then later that night, the mom turns on the I love you forever switch. Then a couple of weeks after that, they have their biological son, who has been sick and in a coma, comes back into the picture and starts getting upset that this robot child has taken his place. So he's like bullying him and trying to get the robot child to break. There is a Popeye joke because he tries to eat a bunch of spinach and his face melts off. They sign a contract when they get the robot child that if they don't want it anymore for any reason, they have to take it back to the manufacturer to be destroyed. And she's on the way to do that, and then she takes a turn and drops it off in the middle of the forest, knowing that he is programmed to love her forever, knowing all he's going to try and do is chase her down. The whole plot of the movie is like, oh, this character did what you knew the whole time he was going to do. And then also Jude Law's character is a robot gigolo. So there's like these sex worker robots, and he gets framed for murder and is running away. And there's this whole middle section. Basically, after the mom leaves Haley Joel Osment in the woods, it basically becomes a whole different film. And that film starts with Jude Law being a gigolo and getting framed for murder, and then this thing called the Flesh Fair happens where a bunch of people who don't like robots try and round up stray robots and like kill them in front of people. And that part was all Steven Spielberg's idea, and that part is all shit. So it's very interesting that a lot of people have come around on this film and started saying that it's one of Spielberg's masterpieces, because I really don't think so. Obviously, I haven't talked about Robin yet at all. He's in this for 5 minutes, and he is just a voice. I guess it's fine. It's one of those things, like, it's such a short, it's so brief, and it's not even him. It's just his voice. So I don't really know what else to say about it. I don't even know what to say about the movie in of itself, other than that it's decent. There was a review of this that I watched in high school that is like, it almost is harder to pay attention to the story, and it's easier to pay attention to, is that a Kubrick move or is that a Spielberg move throughout the whole thing, because everybody knows about the history and the back and forth between the two directors and how this came about. And I did spend a lot of my time watching this, like trying to form my own opinions on it, but also having that. It's an interesting film. I guess it's worth a watch to form your own opinion. It's so odd. It's some of the choices that they make are so odd, and Robin's character is honestly annoying because they have to pay him money to ask him questions, and one of the characters like whispers a question under his breath and he answers that. That's like one of the questions. So you're like, ooh, I don't even like this guy. Who's not even a guy. He's a holographic answering machine. So I don't feel so inclined to give you like a full proper film review, because I'm here for Robin Williams content and I didn't even really get any of that. So AI artificial intelligence had a $78 million domestic gross and a $235 million worldwide gross on a $100 million budget, so it obviously didn't do poorly, other than, I guess from what I've heard at the time that this came out, everybody hated the ending, and, well, I guess I should say what the ending is. Spoiler alert! So, Haley Joel Osment goes down to the bottom of the ocean and finds this statue of the Blue Fairy, and he starts praying for it to make him real for 2,000 years, and then he gets frozen under ice. And if it had ended there, I think it would have been a very interesting question mark, like a more bleak ending. But 2,000 years in the future, these aliens come and find him and grant him the wish, because the teddy bear robot still has a lock of the mother's hair on its person or something. So they use that DNA evidence to bring the mother back to life for one last day, which of course then the robot child dies at the end of that day. So it's very just like the perfect tied up in a bow schmaltzy ending, and I think that is how the story ends. That was the ending that Kubrick was having a hard time making work, because ultimately it really doesn't. Generally, the critical reception was very positive. Robin's performance was kind of praised in a couple of the reviews as well, which is really interesting. A lot of the critics who didn't like it or were less into it at the time have come around, like I said, and have a couple people have regarded it as one of Spielberg's masterpieces, which is very confusing to me. But AI was nominated for Best Original Score and Best Visual Effects at the Oscars. Also got nominations for Best Director, Best Score, and Best Supporting Actor Jude Law at the Golden Globes. Which is interesting, because Jude Law's character is a damn mess in this. He is hokey as hell. He was tap dancing and being like, Gigolo Joe, what do you know? Like, it was so, the tone of this movie is just so wildly inconsistent that it doesn't work for me, but I guess it does work for some people. If you want to see if you're one of those people, AI is available to rent in all the usual places. You can stream it through Paramount Plus. You can also watch it for free with a couple of Peloton ads on Pluto TV, which is what I did. Next week, we are finally getting into the Triptych of Evil, which I'm so excited about. It's 3 back-to-back Robin Williams films in the early 2000s that are all very, very dark. And I'm so excited because these are some of my favorite Robin Williams films, some of my favorite Robin performances. It starts off the Triptych of Evil with 1 Hour Photo, which is arguably, I think, the darkest film that he ever did. I'm really excited to talk about that, really excited to share my opinions on that one with you guys. My sinuses are so pressurized that I feel like I'm joining Haley Joel Osment at the bottom of the ocean right now, and I've already put this video off all week because of that, so